Well, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think artificial intelligence is going to be a problem. I think that it's going to cause a lot of disruption in a lot of industries. It's going to cause a lot of disruption in a lot of spaces, and it already has started. I mean, it's not so long ago that a lot of people thought that things like the creative arts and creative writing and music and creative whatever were the things that are going to suffer last, and they are the most protected ones. But as of March 2023, things are completely different. They are the first ones to go. They are the first ones to cry. They are the first ones suffering. And it just really brings up an interesting question as to what's going to happen. If you go back years and years back, you see that the Industrial Revolution itself also brought a lot of fear into people's minds as to what is going to happen, with people's jobs. I'm going to lose my job. We're not going to be able to do this and that. But, tractors were created, and yes, a lot of people were taken out of the field in terms of them using their hands to harvest and to sow and all those things. But factories were created in which these tractors had to be built, and more stuff. Industry became a lucrative industry. Supermarkets were not a big thing before the Industrial Revolution. I think I'm not really sure about that. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about. But you see now there's like massive supermarkets everywhere, and people are working there. But here's now something in the form of AI that stands to disrupt that space. It stands to disrupt many different industries. And people are crying. People are scared. People are fearful of what's going to happen to their livelihoods. And, there are people who are saying that, yeah, no, actually, the advent of AI is going to bring in more jobs. The advent of AI is going to help solve problems, going to help with whatever. And look, I don't know the answers here, but people are scared. And the more that these things keep happening, especially with the advent of the internet, which obviously is pretty much the main reason why we're even able to make such leaps and grounds, to cover such ground in AI. The internet helps transfer information at a very rapid pace. And if you consider how many naysayers, how many doomsday sayers, how many people out there scare the rest of us, it stands to reason that most people are going to be scared, because the people who come from reason, the people who come to say that, look, this is what has happened in the past, and we're hoping that this is what will happen now in the future with AI. If more of those people could be listened to, instead of us listening to the people who are scaring us with fears of doom, then maybe we would start then implementing and start experimenting with the things that could perhaps evolve into new industries, that could perhaps evolve into new fields, that as AI takes over the things that we were doing, we now move on to those new fields. Of course, I hope at least with the help of AI, because I believe that AI is an important technology to figure out, to solve, because there's just so many things that we would like to achieve. There's so many things that we would like to understand that at a human level, at an individual level, we may struggle to do so. But with the computational ability that AI has, it can be able to solve so many things at a much faster rate. It can be able to compute so much information and then conflate it all to give a result that would require so much collaboration from mere human beings to solve. Does it mean that now that AI system has taken over the jobs of all those human beings who would have had to collaborate in order to create this solution? No. What it does mean is that we have been able to solve a certain situation, or to figure out a certain mystery much quicker than would have had been done by traditional methods. Now, to a lot of people, of course, it's fearful. People are scared. This is scary because they're like, what am I going to do? What do I have to offer? But then again, that is the question, just asked differently. What am I going to do? What do I have to offer? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. And those are the things that we should be trying to figure out in order to usher in a new wave of things. I mean, who would have thought bookstores and libraries would still exist in the day in the time of the internet? But they do, and they still, I mean, they still exist. People still read books. Maybe perhaps less people than before, but people still read books. I think one important thing is that we just figure out how exactly things are going to move as of now. I mean, yes, so many industries have struggled. I mean, look at I don't want to say the name, but streaming services have disrupted an entire industry. But you still have mainstream television that's still quite prevalent in society. And it's just a matter of adaptation. I mean, if we are going to be scared of change, and if we are going to say no, new technology should not prevail, that would mean that even as far back as the fire, that shouldn't have existed, because then, fire probably took away, okay, probably didn't take anyone's jobs. But I'm just saying that if we are going to be scared of what possibilities could come from new technologies like fire, I mean, our cars right now run on the basis of fire. Without fire, unless of course you're talking about an electric car, any internal combustion engine car is made, the movement of that is made possible by an explosion. There's like tons and tons of explosions happening in the engine every time, and that is fire. Without that invention, without the understanding of that natural process, we would not have been able to get to this point that we are at. And we need to understand that us moving in this space and us growing in this space and us figuring out how do we integrate this into society, because remember, technology is supposed to help us do things better, do things quicker, do things cheaper. So that means that we should be looking to AI to say, okay, we've clearly failed to figure out and to solve poverty. AI, help us with that. We've clearly failed and struggled to figure out and to solve education. AI, help us with that. And in some cases, it's not necessarily an issue of societies failing. It is mainly an issue of leadership failing people. In some cases, deliberately, in some cases, perhaps not. But I think that now, if we are to say, okay, there's too much attached to us, we have greed, we have selfishness, we can be bought, maybe then let us outsource certain powers, certain responsibilities to an AI that we can then trust. But then this AI has to be built on solid principles. I mean, of course, a lot of the data that exists out there does not really include the poorest of the people, because those poorest do not share or do not contribute much in the way of data upon which AI is trained. Now, if AI does not understand the issues and the struggles of the poorest of the poor, how then does it incorporate it into its knowledge? And those are the things that we need to figure out. Those are the new industries that are developing that we should be like, okay, guys, so we have AI, but AI does not understand what we are about. Let us now create an industry that is going to help train AI about some of the things that exist in the world, but do not particularly exist in numbers on the internet, so as to disrupt the biases that AI might have. And look, us going through these steps, we're figuring out the mistakes, we're figuring out the issues that our design of AI can have. And we need to just go through those steps, first suffer. A lot of people are going to cry. A lot of artists are already crying now because, some AI system can sort of recreate what they've recreated, what they can create in a much shorter space of time. I don't know if we can then make AI create that on a certain paper, on a certain cloth, in a certain field. I don't know that. I mean, can create it on a screen, but is that enough for people who love art? I don't know. But what I'm saying is, yes, it is sad. But at the same time, I feel like this is great, and it's a great thing for humanity. It is going to help us solve a lot of issues that we struggle to solve, and it frees us to do other things. Think about this. I know a lot of people love driving sports cars, love driving fast cars. But do we really need to be driving every day? Do we really need to be driving everywhere we go? Do we really need to be driving to work every day? People who have to drive to commute to work every day probably don't want to be doing that. Now, that is a sector in which we can now say, okay, then let us now use AI, general AI, that would be artificial general intelligence, to solve the driving. Now we have cars that are self-driving. Now you have back in your hands that hour that you used to spend in traffic. You can now spend that hour reading a book. Yes, you're in your car still, but you're now reading a book, which you could not do before. Maybe you're chatting with friends, chatting with family, whatever it is that you need, maybe even taking a nap in your self-driving car. But then without those sort of technologies, you have to keep on suffering through some of these really tedious processes that we mostly don't want to deal with. We mostly don't want to do. We mostly just hate sitting down and computing doing some calculations. They're just tedious. We just don't like having to drive, and especially if you're driving a manual car, which in some parts of the world they call stick shift. It is boring. But then if we outsource that sort of thing to AI, it frees us to do a lot more stuff. And by the way, if there's artificial intelligence running crazy in our roads, that means that travel time is reduced by a lot, because the cars that are stuck that are in on the road in traffic communicate with each other, and if one is seeming to go onto the route of the other, they are able to see that, because they are able to communicate spatial data, each other's spatial data, and they're able to avoid that, and then you have less accidents and there's more movement, and they can even be driving at like high speeds on the road, because they're communicating with each other. They know what's happening. They know what obstacles are on the road. Actually, there are no obstacles on the road. I think I'm getting off topic. But what I'm saying is, yes, artificial intelligence is coming in. It's going to cause disruption for a couple of years while we try to figure out how we then fit in to this whole ecosystem. But let me end by saying this. And again, I don't know what I'm talking about, so let this just be something that you people go think about. Well, I also think about as well. The main purpose of humanity is to perpetuate our existence, meaning we procreate, we experience life. We have this entire planet to ourselves, but we don't get to experience it. We don't get to spend enough time with our families. And in many cases, people are even scared to have babies because the cost of that is expensive. Systems like AI are here to help with that. They're here to help you not have to deal with the things that you need to do to make money, the things that you need to do to survive. If you're scared that children are expensive because school is expensive and all that stuff, once AI comes into the picture, I believe at least that it will help bring down the cost of education. I believe that it should at least bring down the cost of food. I believe that it should at least help us figure out how to distribute necessary resources everywhere. And once we figure that out, that frees us up to now actually be human. That frees us up to connect with each other, to connect with our loved ones, to travel around the world, to connect with each other. This world is huge, but it has become one big global village. We need to go around, we need to experience different cultures, we need to experience different people, we need to learn new things, we need to understand new things. By doing that, we then create a better future for ourselves, even with the aid of AI. Because that is the main aim of humankind. Us being stuck in this era we are in now, where you wake up and go to work and come back and go to work and come back and go to work and come back, and before you know it, your life is over, and only when you're 60 should we then start exploring the world and start living? That is wrong. I, for one, believe that AI is going to help us solve that. So I don't think we should be getting scared. I think we should start getting creative. But then again, fear is a survival instinct that we have developed over years to help us navigate life and survive. So maybe it is a good thing that some of us are fearful. I, for one, am excited. And I think you should be too. But then again, I don't know what I'm talking about.